Well, howdy. Nearly Senior Citizen here, greetings boys and girls. Welcome to this, a brand new day. Real quick, the Shelton, Washington weather, plague, rat, and spider report. Weather looks like it's going to be sunny. You know, maybe cloudy at first, and then the cloud cover burns off, and then it's going to be another warm, hot day, so thumbs up on that. Plague rat report. Some people wearing their masks properly, people still just pulling it down, and it's bad in the U.S., so thumbs up. But and spider report, the spider up there is fine. She's still dangling up there. I keep thinking that I want to grab a bug and throw it up there on the web so she can eat, but then that's my deciding that the life of a bug is less than that of the life of the spider. I don't want to choose that. I don't think that's my choice. If the bug flies into the web and then gets eaten, that's one thing. But my deciding it has to die, that's something else. So, they're spiders. They're all doing fine. You know, as fine as spiders are. So, thumbs up on that. A good thing. Now, I kind of rushed through that because I got some silly topics. Like, the first thing that I want to talk about after I play with my caller. The first one is, I'm a high context speaker and a low context speaker, so I'm very pedantic and I try and say everything to make sure that you get my point. I don't try to leave it to context, so I flood people with massive amounts of information so that they understand. But I'll try and do this one quickly. In the 1970s, this fellow, Gilbert O'Sullivan, became a songwriter, published songwriter. He released an album, and he had a whole bunch of cool songs on it, and he became famous for the song Alone Again worldwide, which is a song about a guy who basically tells about why everything is hard luck, and everything is bad, and he was going to get married, he was left on the altar, and his mother, her husband of X number of years has died, and she's alone. Now he's alone, and what's the point? We're all alone naturally. And so he does and did serious songs. Even his silly songs have a serious note to them. He's a serious songwriter. And he's done like 19 albums, and he's been a published songwriter his whole life. And so the first song of his first album that was big was the song that was Nothing Rhymes. And it was a song about how just it's really hard to write this song because today none of the words rhyme. And it's a really good song. For whatever reason, of course, it's become just mixed up in my head. So now the last part of the songs, I'm going to do a terrible song part of singing this because I just got up. It's early. I don't want to be loud, so I'm not actually singing this. But the end of the song he's talking about nothing rhymes and such. But now it's a song about a guy who's ordered like a few tons of fondue. Then it's finally shown up, and now there's a pandemic and no one can come out to parties. And so he's got all this fondue and he doesn't know what to do with it. And so it's a song where it goes da 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 da, and then the lyrics, of course, it doesn't matter what the lyrics are, but then he's just talking about, I've got bags of fondue, I've got tubs of fondue, I've got trucks of fondue, I've got stacks of fondue, I've got fondue for me, I've got fondue for you. What am I going to do with all this fondue? And of course that ruins the tone of his song entirely, but I think it's cool. And if I could actually sing and I wasn't worried about waking people up and my voice, I mean, I've only started talking 10 minutes ago or less, about 4. So thumbs up. But it was silly and I wanted to sing that, so thumbs up for that. Now, some of the things that I have done, I actually was able to break my executive dysfunction, and I called up my brother-in-law and actually talked to my son last night. So good thing. We talked for about 35 minutes, and we're hopefully going to be communicating online, if not via phone. He's gone through some bad stuff. I mean, my daughter is going through bad stuff and it's not good, and he went through a suicidal period, and so he's back and we're communicating and it's good. He's had a bad year. I've talked with him and he really needs to be tested for ADHD, so yay, genetics. Such is life. But it was good. I talked to him and that's good. Asked him to send me an email to make sure that I could, we could get the communication in. And so he sent me an email that only had a subject line and nothing else. Yay for youth. He's 16 or 17, he was born in 2004. Alrighty then. Then we had... I have a book that I want to show off when I find it again. I cleaned up my room and I found it. I can't remember where I put the books. Yeah, I know exactly where I put the book. Robert Heinlein I've talked about before, and someone in comments, Made in Canada, asked about that, and so I was talking about Robert Heinlein in the comments, and I thought, I'm going to talk about Robert Heinlein right now with the story, especially some of the things I was talking about in the comments. He wrote some amazing stuff, and he wrote some very problematic stuff and some goofy stuff, like the book Starship Troopers, which is nothing like the movie at all. I mean, it's roughly the same story, but all that extra stuff on top. It's played pretty bloody serious in the book. But he did all sorts of young adult stuff, and then he went into a wild period in his maturity, and then he just sort of went off into tie together all my fiction into one big universe sort of tangent at the end. But he wrote some really problematic stuff. He was a problematic man. Like, he wrote the book Farnham's Freehold, where there's like a nuclear war in this family, last name Farnham. They have like a nuclear fallout, but they get hit in such a way that it doesn't disintegrate them. Of course, it sends them off into an alternate universe. This is an alternate universe where black people were in charge. And so, well, not only do these people have to try and escape and live in a world where those people are in charge. Now, of course, white people are being held as slaves and as a food source. So, he wrote some very problematic books and had some very problematic viewpoints, but at the same time, his politics were not just straight black and white. He had some really good ideas and was good thoughts on various things. When he was writing earlier, before he became really problematic, he wrote some really good stuff. Really weird stuff, especially when you remember these short stories and such would have been coming out like in the 40s and 50s. Like the one story that I really like is a short story called All You Zombies. And it's about the main character who can really identify where they came from, their origin. Because everybody they know in their life is them at some point in the time loop. Because they are actually like born male and then convinced to become female and then are impregnated later and they have a child and then they become male again, and it's really insane. And there's a bartender that he talks to, and he knows that he goes back to convince himself to have the change, and then he impregnates himself and then later gives birth to himself. And the bar that he goes to, the bartender is him later in his life. Everyone in this person's life is him at some point. And so when he goes to bed at night, he thinks about this, going, I know my origin. I know where I come from. What about all of you zombies? And that's heavy duty. And then he wrote some sillier stuff that was still very, very scientifically minded. Like there's there's an object called a tesseract, which is like a fourth dimensional object, and you can make a three-dimensional drawing of it in a three-dimensional representation. It's like when you see those pictures of a little cube and then all these outer cubes that suck inward so they're faced like this, and there's a tiny cube inside of the larger cube. It's not really that way. That is a three-dimensional representation of a fourth dimensional object. So this guy, he writes a story about a guy who's an architect, and he designs a house as a tesseract, only it's an unfolded tesseract. It's one block, and then there's another block on top of it, and then 4 blocks out from that, and then like 2 or however many more blocks on top. An unfolded tesseract. Well, he gets a call after it's built from somebody who's been trying to sell it, and when they get out there, it's been vandalized. It collapsed. And so they get inside, because it's just one thing. They get inside, and they find they can't really get out. Yeah, there was an earthquake, and it took the three-dimensional representation, and it actually collapsed into a real tesseract. So when they're moving from room to room, they're being able to see themselves and other people, but it's really just themselves going through doors in distances, and they only manage to escape when they accidentally fall out backwards through a window. Pretty crazy stuff. Good writer. Problematic man. If you've ever heard of books like Stranger in a Strange Land, which he wrote like around the time I was born. Yeah, his representation of women is not the best, but he was also a product of his time. But the books that he writes are interesting. So if you can, if you ever feel like it, check it out. Robert Heinlein? Yeah, anyway. And then, of course, let's see. Oh, I just saw this morning there was a snapped cable at the Arecibo radio telescope place. It's done I don't know if it's ruined the radio telescope for good, or if it's just out until they can fix it, or if they can still use it partially, because it requires, pinpoint accuracy on this thing, because it's not just one big thing. What they have is arrays of detectors put out in various lines, and they'll have them on big things that can move around depending on the thing, but a cable snapped, and oh my god, it just ripped through it. It is horrifying. So, yay. Little bit of current events there. Let's see what else I might have down on here. Well, actually, the last thing that I have was just dementia, because once again, I followed this writer on Facebook, Adam Troy Castro. I mean, I'm not trying to name drop. He doesn't know me. I've never met him. I just read his stuff on Facebook, so that's why I mentioned that. But he used to be friends with the author Harlan Ellison, who just moderately recently died. And Harlan Ellison was an incredible writer and problematic man. But while Harlan Ellison and Robin Williams had been pretty good friends and admired each other, and he had forgotten or some such that one of the reasons that he had died, and I knew at the time, I mean, he demonetized himself, we all know that, but it was the reasons why. I had forgotten, or else I hadn't exactly known what it was. I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, but he had Lewy dementia. And that is like the second most common form of dementia after Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's is not massive, but it's big and horrific. And this one is bad. It can come on quickly or come on slowly, and he had it coming on fast, where by the time he demonetized himself. He was no longer able to remember anything to be able to go on stage. His short-term memory was that bad. He couldn't remember things to go and perform anymore. And he knew that at the rate it was progressing, within a year, he was going to be nonverbal and unable to identify anything or anyone. And as a man who was so reliant on his brain and his quick wit, yeah, I can understand why he demonetized himself. But as I stated, I went and did some little tiny bit of looking up on that, just tiny, and discovered that, yeah, it's the second most common after Alzheimer's, and it's related to Parkinson's. Because Parkinson's dementia and Lewy body dementia are related and combined to become the second most common form of dementia. So yay. Now, while dementia is awful and terrifying, only about 10 to 15% of the population ever suffers enough from dementia that you require aid and assistance. So age is not a death sentence that way. You're not just going to get demented because you get older. And the more you use your brain, that helps. It's not a panacea, but it helps. And I've opened up 24 hours worth of comments in my community tab, and I'm going to go through and thank 20 to 25 people for having left me a comment. I'm not going to read the comments right now. I'm just thanking you for having left a comment. If I mispronounce the username, no disrespect is intended. I'm an American English speaker, and even though I count American Sign Language on the fingers of this hand, with my depression, fibro, and more, I'm lucky I can remember anything at all. I gotta hurry because it's almost 17 minutes in. I am Nathan Fury. You are correct. Kathy Kisscat, thumbs up and thank you. Marcella, greatly appreciated. Confused Owl, glad you're back and hopefully you're settling in. Tony Bennett, greatly appreciated. Taylor Garlic, hey, that's a heck of a last name. Weedy Life, definitely a cool thing. Russian Timing, greatly appreciated. Elderwolf 569, we're going to get it figured out. We may need your help. No Place Like Home Productions, I agree with you. Then we have Henry Giovannato, glad to see you back. Made in Canada, hey, I talked about that thing a lot now. Samuel Martinez, thumbs up. Guacamole, I am nowhere close to the pronunciation, but thank you. We have Samuel Martinez, thumbs up. Colin Reisenauer is always goated, yes indeed. And then we have Hood Manor, thumbs up. And Sebastian Ferris, greatly appreciated. We have Noah Brown, thumbs up. Prakar Mishra, I'm nowhere close, but thank you. Then we have Newt Avenger, thumbs up. And then there is Christopher Thomas, greatly appreciated. The actual Colin Reisenauer, thumbs up. We have Paruz, thumbs up. And then last but not least, Umar Kabiljanov, Kabildjanov. Thumbs up and thank you, each and every one of you. You get me out of my head, into the world, dealing with real people. It is appreciated to no end. Definitely a thumbs up. If you could check out my various links down below, I have Twitter, Facebook, GoFundMe, Patreon.com. If you could donate to my GoFundMe campaign or become a Patreon.com patron like one of these beautiful and awesome people, that would be beautiful and awesome. And if you'd like to help me out without sending money to one of those two places, I have a PayPal link down below. And if you'd like to help me out without sending money, I have an Amazon wishlist link as well. Definitely a thumbs up. And if you know, I got it mixed up there, do not feel obligated. I do not feel entitled. And if you cannot donate or you simply do not donate, I take all good wishes and I deposit them in the bank of my heart where I draw interest. So thank you very much. If you could toss me a like, I appreciate all the positive validation I get for my existence. And of course, if you could subscribe to the channel and hit that bell, that would be very cool, greatly appreciated. I would understand if you did not wish to, but if you're down with it, I will do my best to keep you entertained from now until the literal end of time. Definitely a thumbs up. Well, good golly, Miss Molly, I have this video here. I have a video to edit and render for my second daily video. Thumbs up for that. So I hope your day is as awesome as it possibly can be. And you take care. Have a great day today. I will see you on the flip side. Ooh, itchy ear. And practice your social distancing. Wear a mask. Practice self-care. Black Lives Matter. Damn it. And keep protesting. The jack-booted, brown-shirted thugs keep killing, and that is intolerable. Have a good day, and I will see you, my friend.